Well, it is 7 o'clock, and while people are still joining us, I thought I'd open with a little song, just to get us all inspired. This is One Voice Chorus in Utah, and a song that they put together honoring first responders, people in service jobs, people who are on the front lines. And I invite you, as the song plays, in the chat, just write the name of somebody that you want to thank and remember for their work in the service world. So this is, again, One Voice Chorus in Utah.
You're the engine that makes all things go, and you're always in disguise, my hero. Your light in the dark, smile on my face when we all know it's hard. There's no way to ever pay you back. Bless your heart, know I love you for that. Honest and selfless, I don't know if this helps it, but good job, you're doing a good job, a good job. You're doing a good job, don't get too down. The world needs you now. Know that you matter, 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 yeah. You're doing a good job, good job. You're doing a good job, don't get too down. The world needs you now. Know that you matter, 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 yeah.
6 in the morning, as soon as you walk through that door, everyone needs you again. The world's out of order. It's not a sound when you're not around.
All day on your feet, hard to keep that energy. I know when it feels like the end of the road, you don't let go, you just press forward. You're the engine that makes all things go, go. Always in disguise, my hero. I see a light in the dark, smile in my face when we all know it's hard. There's no way to ever pay you back. Bless your heart, know I love you for that. Honest and selfless, I don't know if this helps it, but
Good job, you're doing a good job, a good job.
good job.
You're doing a good job, don't get too down. The world needs you now. Know that you matter, matter, matter.
Good job.
You're doing a good job, a good job.
You're doing a good job, don't get too down. The world needs you now. Know that you matter, 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 yeah. The mothers, the fathers, the teachers that reach us, strangers to friends that show up in the air. From the bottom to the top, the listeners that hear us, this is for you. You make me feel it. You're doing a good job, a good job. You're doing a good job, don't get too down. The world needs you now. Know that you matter, matter, matter.
Thank you so much to our first responders, our healthcare workers, our mothers.
Thank you to our moms and our dads.
Thank you to our teachers who've helped us.
We know it's been hard, but thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our webinar tonight. I thought I'd just start with a really inspirational video of some amazing work that this youth chorus has done in creating a virtual choir in a really different way. So I am thrilled to introduce tonight Kathleen Hansen and Thea Kano. And can each of you just say a little bit about who you are and what you do in this world? And thank you so much for leading this and what we should expect tonight in our webinar. That would be great.
Sure. Hi, I'm Thea Kano. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am the artistic director of the Gay Men's Chorus of Washington, D.C. I'm in my 7th season with them in that role. And then it's actually my 17th year with GMCW. As the first 10 years, I was the assistant conductor and the associate conductor. So been around the block a little bit. You know, we've already presented several virtual concerts this year and have several more in the queue. And so what Kathleen and I hope to do tonight is give you some ideas, maybe share some do's or don'ts that worked for us or didn't work for us, and just give you some encouragement or answer any questions you might have. Of course, the way we approach things are all very different, and there's many ways to have a successful concert, certainly, but we just want to share some ideas here. Kathleen.
Hit unmute as my picture was moving. So I'm Kathleen Hansen, she, her. I'm the artistic director of the San Diego Women's Chorus and the GALA 411 artistic advisor. I also direct 2 other adult community choruses here in San Diego, and they're all a little bit different. So it's been kind of cool perspective seeing the different ways that different organizations are doing things. And just for fun, because why not? I'm also helping out with Wind Song, Cleveland's feminist chorus this season. So preparing rehearsals for a group that it has an even different season trajectory. And so like Thea said, we just want to be able to share our experiences. And as we go along today, if there are things that you want to see discussed, please feel free to put them in the chat box. We'll try to save a little time for the end to see if we need to direct our conversation differently, but I'm looking forward to sharing with you the things that worked and the things that didn't work so well.
Yeah, and feel free to put questions in the chat as we go, and Jane will keep an eye on that. If there's some question that really pertain to what we're talking about right now, we're happy to address those. We just want to keep this very informal and conversational. By the way, I want to point out that I have on my face a Band-Aid. I did not cut myself shaving, not this time. Just had a little visit to the dermatologist today, and she just took a little biopsy. So you don't have to sit there wondering, what's going on there? So sorry about that. First of all, Jane, thank you for playing that beautiful video. I think that raised the bar for all of us, just seeing the potential. We have been living in this little, these little boxes of our singers for several months now, and we want to continue to raise the bar in creativity and expression in ways that we can really make an impact. So thank you for sharing that. And I also really love that exercise of including the names. That was really very moving. Thus far, GMCW has presented in this season 3 virtual shows. So we had our fundraiser last summer, we had a cabaret in the fall, and then we had our holiday show in December, of course. And we are currently in the final editing stages for our March show. And then in April, our youth chorus will present their show. We have another fundraiser, our spring fundraiser in May, and then of course our Pride show in June. So that's 7 major shows total that we would be doing anyway in a normal year. And so we just committed to trying to make it happen here. So like I said, we just want to, we'll start to get into the weeds a little bit into the rehearsal process and editing process, and just give you some ideas of how we've made it happen, recognizing that we all have a lot of balls in the air, and sometimes we're just not kind of sure what to do next. So hopefully, as I said, we can answer some questions for you. Kathleen, what has your year been like so far?
So, goodness. When we first went into this distancing, we were getting ready to put on a cabaret show. So we decided to move that virtual, and that was our first thing that we tried virtually, and that kind of got all of our feet wet. After we did that, and it felt like it was pretty successful and going in the right direction, we put on an additional show in the late summer, early fall, and then we put together a holiday show. And what has really surprised me with regard to how I've had to change how I think about the season compared to regular seasons, things like the learning curve of the singers, the learning curve of me changing the way that I've run rehearsals. We are doing the editing in-house, so that's something that I've learned how to do. And a little bit of help here and there with my last assistant, who was wonderful, but has moved to New Zealand, where they can go do things. In addition, organizing a new budget. What's this going to look like? How are we going to bring in money? And we have been able to do that pretty well. And then I think one of the things that was challenging for me, because I instantly went into problem solving mode. And meanwhile, many people in our organization were kind of in the hunker down, get in the turtle shell mode. So the very first, like, this is my vision, this is what I think we can do, I think we can put on a virtual show, was a little bit of a tough sell as we did that. So that very first interaction when we were talking about with the board, they're like, I don't know if this is something we want to do. It's a lot, it's different, it's new, it's. And I twisted their arms and they're like, okay, fine, we'll do it. And then we got done with our first show and it was such a morale boost. Having a tangible product, even courses, even putting together a tangible production, something we can do to connect with our community. It just kind of gave us that little energy injection to get over the next hump before we see, okay, what's going to happen next. So the next, we've kind of divided this evening into sections, and the next section that we're going to talk about is about season planning. So for me, kind of historically, I am not honestly the most organized person. And the way that I get around that is obsessively organizing things. And I know that that might sound a little strange, but it gives me such peace of mind knowing what I have to do when. So as we go along today, we're going to share just some different screenshots. And what I'm going to show you first is a planning spreadsheet that I have. And it's not nearly as detailed as the first time I did this. I will be very honest with that. And since I'd done it a couple times, it was a lot easier for me to say what needs to happen. So I have the names of all the songs we're going to learn this season. And then I, wrote down where I got them and if they've been paid for, and the voicing. Voicing is really interesting because with our virtual rehearsals, let's say we're going to have one sectional per week. Am I going to go into a 3-part sectional or a 4-part sectional? Am I going to put the soprano ones together with the soprano twos, or am I going to put the altos together, etc.? Then figuring out if we're going to record this stuff. In this particular case, these are things we're recording. And I will talk a little bit about non-performance oriented things here as well. This is just what we happen to be doing this season. I wrote down who is responsible for the accompaniment. So when I've got my accompanist doing the accompaniment, here it is. But if I'm using a stock accompaniment, then I also have to put on my to-do list, go get permission to use that. You got to get rights to use someone else's recording of something. And then talking about who's going to do the guide tracks. In a regular season, we usually use choral tracks. And it doesn't really matter that much if it doesn't match the way I want to do it. But if this is the season and we're going to use those tracks as a guide track, I'm going to want up front, I'm going to want to know how I want that song to go. So that I'm not like, here's how the song goes, learn it from these tracks. Oh, by the way, record to this other track. Because what happens? Someone is going to record to the wrong track. Yep. So it's really important to me, like who's going to do the tracks. That changes the way I pick music. I'm not going to do a super rubato piece. I'm not going to do a piece that goes 7/8, 6/8, 3/8 back and forth. Like, no, this is not the season for that. This is, and also I have it arranged with like the easy songs that are kind of like the Justice Choir songbook types of songs, the kinds of songs that you can really learn in a day or two, and then arrangements. So if you're looking at this thing that I have here, half of those are pretty darn easy to learn, and half of them are more like standard choral arrangements. I wrote down who's responsible for recording the tracks. Who is the person, once we get to editing, that's going to be doing that editing? To move a window out of the way here. Notes, am I adding anything? What's the order? I used red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple-ish to show which order I'm introducing and recording the songs in. I have to do all of this before the season gets too far underway because I don't want to back myself into a corner and be like, hey, cool, guess what, everybody? We're recording 8 songs. They're all due on May 1st. Good luck. That is never going to work. So we're starting our season recording a song this next week after only 2 rehearsals, because it was an easy song. We did Love is Love out of the Justice Choir songbook with the accompaniment is Pocketbill's Canon. You can just throw, by the way, if you haven't done that, you can just throw that right under it. It works perfectly. So I think kind of with the planning thing, having my end goal in mind, not just the hard, this is the tangible product, but what other things do I need to be aware of? The song that Jane played today, for example, I've been trying to incorporate more things like that into my rehearsal, where we can sit and reflect and chat with each other and wave at each other. Just take 5 minutes. So it's not just, we're not just banging out notes. We're missing the things that would usually happen in rehearsal. I've got a pretty big group, but if I send the altos to sectional down the hall, what are they doing on the way there? They're talking to each other. They're catching up. They're whispering something, whether or not we love that, right? Like, oh, how's your new puppy?
Yeah.
We need to build in time for that. So what have you been doing for planning, Thea?
Before I forget, we've been starting our rehearsals most recently with a few minutes to say, just talk, ask about that puppy, how's the weather, how's your job, and kind of get that out. And with the small ensembles, we're able to be a little bit more organic with that because we don't have as much pressing due dates, if you will. And so if it lasts 5 minutes, fine. If it goes on more like 10, 12 minutes, that's totally fine too.
I know exactly what you're talking about, and I can hear it. And
someone need to be muted? Anyway, so because obviously the social aspect is so very important, and this is a lot what we're really missing right now. But as far as planning goes, we in all cases, we have a concert date and we back up from there and we look at the music we're learning, and like you said, the more difficult things we spend more time on, and we might learn the easier ones sooner than later. And that's the same in this setting, except you have to then add in several weeks post-learning for the recording and then the editing. So right now our March show opens on the 13th, so that's 3 weeks from now. We had our last rehearsal for the March show on February 7th. So we actually started after the holidays. January only had 5 weeks. And by the way, rather than talk about my whole year, since Kathleen kind of did an overview of what she does, we do something similar, and my life is also spreadsheets. So yes, I'm all for spreadsheets. Because I talk about the balls in the air, there's just too many things to remember that is new for us in this process. We as ADs and conductors, we're used to multitasking, but these are brand new things we're having to deal with because, let's face it, overnight we are all now music video producers, whether we want it to be or not. So yeah, I encourage the spreadsheets. But so like I was saying, for the March show, we only had 5 rehearsals to learn 4 songs. It's not that many. And actually this show that we're about to put up, we were going to present live last March. And like many of you, with 2 days notice, we had to cancel the show. So a lot of the singers in the process now had learned the music ahead of time anyway, so I wasn't as worried about getting 4 pieces up in 5 weeks. But what we do also is on that first rehearsal, we let the singers know song number 1, the last rehearsal is going to be January 28th, and the video will be due February 5th. I'm making these days up. And then song number 2, the last rehearsal is going to be February 5th, and so it's staggered. The other thing too is we give our singers an option to sing all that we're learning now, or just choose 1 or 2, and that's what works really well. I think that helps with the whole kind of stress aspect, if you will. I do find now that we are into our second major show of doing the videos too, we have more people involved with more songs because they're kind of learning the ropes and how to do it. So the other thing with our planning is, I'm talking about just the chorus. Now we also have a dance company, and in fact, one of our choreographers is on the line here, so I'm sure he's going to thumbs up on this one. They started rehearsing and recording back in September, and socially distanced, of course, rehearsing at home, following videos, and then in one case, we actually took the company to a big, huge field up in Pennsylvania so they could be outdoors and socially distanced, and with a drone camera we videoed them dancing, again distance, and then incorporate masks into their costume and so on. So when you put a show together, it doesn't have to be entirely choral pieces. We do also have solos and things, and those soloists have started recording many months ago as well. So again, it's very similar to what we do in a normal setting, except that you need to leave the time for the editing. Now we do editing both in-house, and we farm the full chorus, larger pieces out, if you will, when we have 80 to 100 singers. And so it's just a matter of the timing, and we're communicating with that company as well as with our in-house editors on what timing they need. One other thing I'll say too is it's very strange to have finished the rehearsals for this show a couple weeks ago, and it doesn't open until March 13. But the time we have now we're using for special events and social time, as we were talking about before. In fact, this Sunday, several of our members are presenting an event on Black History Month. And so our several singers have gone out, they've chosen some songs, some will be singing, some will be presenting videos, and just it's a nice way to engage our singers. And that's one thing really important to keep in mind throughout the process, is how to keep singers engaged, not get bored, or just, or get, stressed out over doing the same thing or having to do too much. And how do you keep your patrons engaged too? So that's why it's great to keep the content coming, because our patrons love to see that we're still bringing them some great entertainment.
I'm really amazed at how many similar things we're actually doing now. As like, oh, yep, doing that, yep, doing that, yep, doing that. And as a director, we're used to having this trajectory that's build, and then it's show night, and then the next day, yeah. And that waiting for this show hasn't debuted yet. I still get nervous on the debut day. I'm like, I hope we don't have any technology problems.
Oh yeah, definitely, me too.
And then you don't get the applause after, right?
So yeah, that is so weird. The show ends, it's like crickets.
Yeah, so we built in an after party after we put on our show, right? So that we can still give each other pats on the back and be like, oh, this song, and oh, did you see this? So they can still have that conversation. What
we did in December, we're going to do in March, and for the June show is the show, again, in March it goes up on the 13th, which is a Saturday, and it's going to run for 2 weeks on a pay-per-view option. That's another conversation. But on that next night, that Sunday night, we're going to come together and watch it here together. So our singers can be chatting, and our dancers can be chatting during it, responding, and as you said, the whole pat on the back. Because it is weird, because we have these rehearsals, and then it kind of goes flatline. Now, not for us, obviously, working in production, we're very busy, but singers, they're by now they probably even forgot about the songs. So it's very fun when finally we can come together, and so it's really important to come together as a group, I think, as a family, to take it all in and appreciate each other's efforts for sure.
That's so great. Do you want to talk about how that impacts how you do rehearsals?
Yes, exactly. So we do, probably like many of you, rehearsals via Zoom. We rehearse every Sunday night. This is the full course, of course, for 3 hours, which is a long time for certainly the directors, but the singers are only engaged for about an hour and a half. So we're a TTBB chorus. The first hour and 15 minutes is our tenors, and then we have a combined half hour or so for announcements or anything we need to. Sometimes we'll run something together, all 4 sections. Announcements about an upcoming video date and things to remember, attire, whatever. And then the rest of it is for the baritone bass sectional. And then within each of those sectionals, we break up into separate rooms, and I take one part, and then our associate conductor takes the other part. So like I said, the individual singer only has to be on about an hour and a half or so. In the fall, that was actually truncated a bit, and we found it to be a little bit rushed, a little bit like, are we getting to everything? And the fall concert, of course, we rehearsed from September, as we do, through December, which actually we ended up in November, I suppose. Yeah, we ended in November, so we could have editing time, but it was a longer rehearsal period. And so for this March show, we had such a short 5-week period to rehearse. That's why we elongate a little bit. So it makes it for a long night, for me and the pianist and the other conductors, but otherwise it seems to be working okay. When we have that first rehearsal, I told you we give them a date so they know they can kind of put on their calendar, and we stagger it. And that's been really very different from in a live setting when, we try to get through as much as we can each week because they have to memorize it and all that. So that's definitely something very different. The other thing I think is really important, it's really worked for us, is at the first rehearsal of the new concert period that we have already available to them the guide tracks that have the accompaniment, the part recording, and a conducting video if you're going to include that. And that's a hard one for me personally, because I guess like many of us, you're polishing up to the last minute, maybe making little changes here and there in a live setting, whereas this means you're committed. And that part recording has an A on beat 3 and it really should have been a G. Well, guess what? The singers are going to record that A. So there's a lot that you have to, let go of. But that's why it's important, as Kathleen said, to choose music that is, 4-part, as in don't go crazy, meaning with your harmonies. A nice steady tempo is great. You don't want to do a lot of vibrato. It's just that much harder to make that successful for not just the singers, but for you, and particularly in the editing process. One thing I want to add too that's helpful for these virtual choir recordings is if our last rehearsal is on the 7th, then on the 8th, we will send out a gig sheet for that video project that lists all the details. And the top of it says the name of the song, and it has a link in it to find the guide track. It has a link to where to upload it. It says what you're going to wear for this one. And on the second page is what applies to all the gig sheets, and that is reminders about a neutral background. We're talking about the successful concerts, if you will, and you want it to look polished. And I find that we have the most success when there's a neutral background, because the singers look the best. And even reminding them, if they can hide their cord, right, from their earphone, like maybe over their shoulder, that's going to look nice too. So we have all those like little suggested details on the back of that gig sheet. That just makes it really easy. And then if a singer decides not to sing this one concert, they can just delete it. That one song. How are your rehearsals?
That's great. Yeah. So I was really interested in how you were talking about staggering who would come to which part of rehearsal. That's what I did last fall and winter. I had this very elaborate plan where I was like, okay, everybody's going to learn these 3 songs. And then those people who are learning this song are coming early this day, and these people are kind of staying late this day. And it was okay, but It was a lot of work for me. Now we kind of split a season into 2. So we took a season that would have been a 14-week season, and we did like 6 weeks on and then a break of a week and then another 6-7 weeks. This season, I decided to go from start date all the way through May, all the way through. And instead of staggering that, I said, I'm buying every piece of music for everybody. I don't care if you're going to record it. Everybody's going to learn these 8 songs. And absolutely, we've changed. If you remember my first spreadsheet, I linked it in the comments, by the way. It's the recording dates are staggered. So in each rehearsal, I might only really touch a couple songs. Right. So I'm not working on
the future.
Except for the one song that's like hardest that we're going to do at the end. Right.
Yeah.
But I feel like having that focus, people have such smaller focus when we're online. Right. So we want to get in, do the thing, socialize, learn the song, socialize, get out.
Yep.
So we're not all just staring at computers forever and ever.
Yeah. Yeah. The same here. Exactly. If today's last rehearsal of song number 3, whatever, we're going to spend the majority of time on it, obviously, but you stagger the how much time you spend depending on when the due date is. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I want to show, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask both of you, because we don't see each other. Can you talk about how you get scores to your singers, and what's the best way to get a calendar to them, especially when the calendar might change because something comes up? Like how do you communicate really consistently with your singers?
So the next thing I'm going to share is like my season info sheet.
Great.
As far as music goes, we want to make sure that we are law compliant. I've been ordering music that is available in PDF, or that the publisher has said, yeah, we're in weird times, go ahead and buy the number that you need, use the number that you need. We use Choir Genius. So I know some people, there's lots of different things there. The other thing that we've done is for the tracking of the guide tracks and where we turn everything in, we have a season Google Drive. So pretty much everybody needs to be responsible for 2 links. One is the link to the season Google Drive. One is the link to the season information document, which are actually cross-linked. So if you have either one of those, you'll be able to find what you need. How about you, Thea?
We use Course Connection, so our music library is there, and same. I mean, most of the anymore we're finding, which is great, more and more that we can just buy the e-print, pay for the amount that you want, and we have those available on Course Connections by in a folder by the title of the show. So the one thing I'm doing too differently is when we start each concert period, that the scores are in there with my markings already in it. And that's something that I know a lot of conductors do anyway, and that's not something I've ever done before. But the concert in December, I didn't do that, and singers were saying how they really missed, obviously some of our singers are more comfortable, educated with, writing markings, and others are don't have as much experience, and they're used to be able to look over at their buddy next to them and like, oh, okay, rest on beat 3, or what'd she say? And so this way, it's up there and ready to go, and so we're all looking at the same markings. What it does mean, I find that between rehearsals, if I'm like looking at my score and studying and I make a change, I have to like put a star by it and make sure that I let them know to add a new marking in. The other thing we've included in our guide tracks is the score as part of the video scrolling by. But then again, because we've presented those or prepared them to be up at the first rehearsal, if I do add a breath on beat 3 in the third rehearsal, it's not going to ultimately be in that guide track video. So it's like, ugh.
Yeah, so, and it's an extra layer of work, but it's so awesome when people can do that. I've done that with a couple tunes, and I was like, oh my gosh, if I had somebody to do that for me.
Right. We made this mistake of doing that with one of our pieces in December, and now the singer's like, oh, please, we love that. And can we have that, once we get back into the real world, that you have a conducting video for us? We're like, no, you can turn your own pages.
Totally. So, Thea, there's a request if you would be willing to share your gig sheet. I am going to show all of you my version of the same, which is all housed in one Google Doc. And I kind of, at the beginning of the year, I sent all this out, and every time we have a deadline coming, the section leaders are going to send it out. But here's the season information and recording instructions. And a very important paragraph. I know this looks like a lot of words, but that's for clarity. Make sure to read the whole thing. We will make sure your questions are answered. So I'm like, before you go get overwhelmed, get a cup of tea, read the whole thing like twice.
Yep.
Then we'll talk about it. Then if you still have questions, we'll keep answering them. So at the top, here are my due dates. And similar to Thea, this is a choose your own adventure. So I sent out, and I can show you if you're interested in seeing it. I sent out a Google form that said, okay, do your best. Tell me which songs you plan to record this season. Now, last season, it was great, and they self-sorted, and I had 40 people on this song, and 16 people on this song, and 60 people on this song, and 9 people on this song, and it was perfect. And now they're like, well, we've done this. We want to record all the songs. And the editor in me is like, I might have to pull some people off because I cannot edit like 8 full chorus recordings.
Yeah.
But this link right here, we record audio video separately. So this is the master link for all of the folders for the season. If I go to this link, it's gone. Here are your guide tracks. Here's where you put your video. Here's where you put the audio. And so all they have to do is find the song and put it in the right place. Are they always going to put it in the right place?
Nope.
No.
Just today we were moving things around.
Exactly. So I've asked I have section leadership. I have section leaders and managers. I've asked them to go in. I was like, please make sure they're named correctly, because when I import them, I do not want to have to click through and rename everything so that it matches my workflow. Number 2, make sure it goes into the right folder. Number 3, make sure that they've uploaded an actual video, not like a still picture of their chicken. It happened.
Which happened today too. It wasn't a chicken. I think it was a hedgehog. But exactly, it's amazing how many stills come up. I don't understand.
You just put something in the video folder that was totally random. So it happens. It happens. Have a way around it. Either have a good laugh and fix it yourself, or have a crew who can do it. Now, the way our, instructions gig sheet works, I made like the general instructions first. Like, here's how you do your audio recordings. I restated the same link. By the way, they still go right here. It's the same link I gave you before. And then general instructions for video, and then specific instructions by song.
Nice.
So sometimes we want, so for our first one, we have like rainbow shirts and a colorful background. Sometimes I want a plain background. Sometimes I want like, go stand in front of something that's cool in your house. Like I want to see your plant and your cat. Like that's cool. So I have them all lined out that way. One-stop shopping.
That's great, and it's amazing how similar we are in our processes. You listed there the due dates for all the songs, and we put those into our weekly newsletter, our internal membership newsletter. We call it The Score. So we always say check the score, and it lists the dates of all that. But I'll show you for an individual gig sheet. Let me do a little screen sharing here. Hopefully I don't share too many random things. Here we go. So this is our gig sheet for the song My Strongest Suit. By the way, I'd be remiss if I don't mention our incredible production manager and the production team. I mean, this is, I will say, and Kathleen's saying this too, you've got to have people help you just to keep all those balls in the air and, you know, double check everything. But our production manager, Chipper Dean, who, by the way, was the production manager for Festival, and I don't know if he's going to, I don't know, Jane, has he committed to sticking around for the next one? Anyway,
we're going to twist his arm.
I hope, well, yes, he's amazing. He's also on the board. So shout out to Chipper. You know, he puts together this lovely gig sheet, including the fabulous image. So the name of the song is here. And so these are instructions specific to the song. And like Kathleen was pointing out on theirs. So you have your attire, you have your guide track and the link to where to find it. Information about the submitting the video and the date it's due, little things like how to label your video and so on, and then finally questions, email right here. So that it always changes. What is consistent is the recording process, and it does seem like a lot, and we say the same thing to our singers. Sure, it's a lot to read. It might seem like very heady and so much information, but take your time with reading it. And what we have done, this is really, I say, some advice for you to consider, we've made it consistent. So the only thing that changes is, like you said, the attire, the background. Are we going to, you know, just smile pretty at the camera? Are we going to dance a little bit? All that, it changes by song. But this second page here, the recording process has stayed consistent for this concert period, and that's something we learned. We did not do it consistently for the December concert period, and we were all pulling our hair out, and the singers were going nuts. So just keep it very simple. Talks here about your settings on your phone, placement, lighting, and so on. Little things like, by the way, at the end, I'm sure those of you go to it, it's always like cut off, and then right away they're diving to turn on.
Like this.
Oh, so I would say, I even wrote into my score, I mentioned I uploaded my score, it says everyone at the end, freeze, capital letters, and even a rehearsal, we'll finish the song, I'll say freeze, and I won't say a darn thing for a good 10 seconds, so to remind them.
That's brilliant.
So this has been helpful.
No, I love that. And the other one that gets me is if people don't come in until like measure 16, and then they like start their camera at measure 15, and I'm like, so what am I supposed to show right there? Yeah. Like, all right, Glenn, I need another video of you playing the piano. Yeah.
And it's tricky, as we all know, because you have to have a couple devices, and sometimes a singer will have their camera. I don't know what they're doing, because we get this side view the whole time. What?
I'm working on a video. I should have it out by maybe next week of all those things. I'm going to be like best practices for virtual recordings. So I'm going to mimic like all the bad angles and all the ones that like dance so much that they're coming out of screen, or like the forehead cut off.
Yeah.
So those are fun. So do you want to go on to talk about a little bit about how, yes, I will totally share that when I get it done. You want to talk a little bit about kind of how you've structured your actual performance, or do you want me to jump into that? Either way.
Good.
Okay, so there are some really cool things about this. We can do collaborations with people who live across the country, right? Mm-hmm. So for each of our performances, we've collaborated with at least one other group, sometimes local, sometimes far away. And that's been a really fun thing because we can invite one another to our rehearsals. So maybe we'll come cross-pollinate, like come to my rehearsal, we'll do warm-ups together, we'll go into sectionals. It's fun to see new people. And then you see them when the final production is done, like, oh, there's that, oh, there's that, oh, there's that, which is really great. And the other thing that's been helpful, I think, people who wouldn't usually get up in front of people live to speak, they may be willing to write something out and read it. By the way, there is an app for phone called Teleprompter. I think it's called Teleprompter. And
just downloaded it last week.
Right?
It is amazing.
It's fantastic. So usually I use the better camera, but if you've got a new phone, the selfie camera is really darn good. So you can set this teleprompter up. The words will scroll by. You can tell it how fast to scroll the words by, and it looks like you're looking right at the camera.
It's amazing.
You're not like, hello, welcome to our performance, which is something some of our MCs have had trouble with. There's a learning curve there.
Or you're not trying to do it memorized and you keep messing it up and forgetting your next line, and it takes 17 takes.
Right. Other than the MC thing, our performances that we've been putting on are definitely a combination of new material and old material. We've gone with YouTube because of licensing issues, just easiest, cheapest for the position that we're in. We've done it kind of KPBS style. I mean, PBS style, it's KPBS in our neighborhood, where, you know, we'll put out a banner across the bottom, text, blah, 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 to test XDWC to this number to donate. We've also run a silent auction, which has been really successful on, silent auction, like Bidding Owl. There's some websites out there that do that. There's some downsides to that. You have to pre-plan everything. So if we haven't done live, we've done all pre-recorded just to kind of handle any variables that might come up in a live whatever. But then you have to say things like, okay, bidding closes at 10 p.m., but then you have to make sure what date it is, because I'm leaving that concert up for an additional week.
Right.
What we found, so the last two concerts, what we've done is we put it on YouTube on Saturday and Facebook on Sunday afternoon, and closed our auction Sunday evening. And then we left those up. And what we found is about half of the views or more came from later viewings, which is really convenient. Because I mean, our best time is 7 p.m. Well, most of our friends in New York aren't going to stay up that late to watch our show. So we're like, yeah, well, here's the link. We obviously want people to do live because it's so much fun to get in there in the chat and see people and interact with people. But that's just worked really well for us. So I program kind of the same way I would for a live performance. You know, I've got openers and up and down, and it still has that roller coaster ride.
Arc, the theme.
I wouldn't put anything on longer than an hour personally. I just think attention span. I have heard some people say to stack the best stuff at the beginning to
I've heard that too.
But if I figure if I've got we've had good retention in general. And if we've got a good opener and a good, like, comfortable MC, hey, how you doing? Check out the rest of the show. We've had people stay pretty well.
Again, not a lot different than what we do on stage, right? We always want to have a fabulous opener and then ride that roller coaster, if you will, with the arc and the theme. We strive for the same thing, about an hour in length. Our cabaret was an hour and a half. We didn't hear any complaints about that. And our major shows are all pre-recorded. The exception is our fundraiser. So in August, we had, some of it was pre-recorded, and that we did have some already recorded virtual choir performances. But then our executive director, Justin Fiala, who's on this call, hi Justin, and I were both live from I was from my home, and Justin was at the downtown at the office of the production company that we had hired to make sure that we didn't mess this up. We're going to be doing our next fundraiser in May 1st, and that will also have a live component to it as well. Otherwise, everything else is pre-recorded. And like we have the openers. We strive in that hour to have a mix of new material that we've learned here. And we don't want it to all be the little boxes. We do some of the smaller ensembles are starting to do, including the dance company, like I mentioned, videos more like what we saw at the beginning of this hour that Jane played for us, where we've done the audio separately, and it might, just again breaking out of those boxes. And I think too, as time goes on, the more we can do that, the better, because it's been how many months now that we've been looking at these boxes. And add to it that most of us, all of us, including our viewers, are spending their workday here looking at the boxes. So any sort of visual interest you can do. We're very fortunate that our director of marketing is a brilliant video producer or editor, and has just such a great eye for the flow and color and such. And he puts together song after song after song. I give him the run of show, and then he also creates song cards before each song. Also, we have speakers, and we do this on live stage too. We'll have folks tell stories or set up the next song somehow. And then we also do an ask throughout our show, and it might be on a title card after a song, please give, in our website. And then also at the top we have our intro, where Justin and I would say hello and remind them that we need their support and how to support us.
Love that. I want to just kind of put out a shout out for folks who don't want to do a full length show. What we found still being able to engage with our audiences, even if you do one song that you've been able to put together, or if you take a couple of old pieces from prior performances, even if it's an audio recording and put a slideshow on it, it's still engaging with audiences. And I've seen people put these up in little mini performances. Hey everybody, we're going to debut a video. It's going to be at 6:30 on Thursday night. Please join us on YouTube. Please join us on Facebook. Please join us on, wherever it is, and see it. At very least, you can get your own chorus members there, and maybe everybody can bring in 1 or 2 people, and then you still have that communal feeling of, we put something together, we're giving it to the public. And if you're looking to make money for that, maybe you can accompany that with an ask, or put it up just out of the goodness of your heart. But those are wonderful things to send out with your newsletter. So when this whole thing first started, we threw together Circle Chant, which has 17,000 views on it now. And we didn't know what we were doing yet.
Right.
we all had
we did. I know the
lighting, and just everybody's took their first take with their earbuds singing. But it looked really cool. But we were able to then send that as a thank you to our donors, send that out with our, hey, what have we been up to? We've been having rehearsals. At rehearsals, we learn sing-along stuff. For example, last week I put on a great video of Melanie Demore singing and leading I'll Be Your Standing Stone. And we went into breakout groups for, 6-7 minutes, and just let everybody talk about what that meant to them, what that felt like. It's a community sing-along song that you can pick up as it's going along. So at people's leisure, they could sing along. So even though we are kind of results oriented, we are doing these other community building things to make up for those things that would usually happen during a rehearsal.
I love that idea. The other thing too about showing archival video is, I know our singers love to see it, because remember when, Howard, it was only last year, but it seems like a lifetime ago. And I think our patrons too like to see us, in a normal setting, even though
and hear that sound at the end of a song.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing too with even just doing 1 or 2 individual project is they're fantastic for outreach. Not just community building, as you were just describing, but we're often getting requests, which surprises me, people saying, can you come sing at our wedding? Like, really?
Right.
No, but here is a video we're happy to share with you. But I think too, going forward back into the real world, whenever that is, that we will be able to use these videos going forward still. And I think we're probably going to continue to make some going forward as well.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, we should do this once in a while, because
we now have a library of videos, right? And we, like I said, we often are getting requests, not just weddings, but in fact, the National Education Associations had their national annual conference and asked for a song. And actually, it wasn't a new virtual choir project. It was something from a couple of years ago, and so we pulled it from a show, and created a welcome video as part of it, and the credits and song title and all that, and So it was great.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And the reach, we were, one of our songs was featured in a choral festival online in Poland a few months ago. They just found it and they're like, hey, can we use this? And I'm like, of course. But that kind of reminds me, and by the way, we're kind of gonna give you the moment to ask questions. So start thinking of anything you want us to talk about for the last 10 minutes. I built my season this time with the thought in mind that Pride is coming up. We have community events. We have a local LGBTQ Me Too conference. They're going to want a song. And so as I was planning my season around the 3 words, hope, joy, and resilience, I planned what songs are people in the community going to want to hear? Because they're not going to want to hear an esoteric choral song. They're going to need things of certain length. They're going to need things that are fairly catchy, whether or not it's a popular known song, but they're going to need something with message. Mm-hmm. So I definitely planned a lot of my season around that this time.
Yeah.
So Thea and Kathleen, someone was asking if they don't have in-house resources to put together a virtual video, what does it cost to hire someone? And I know there was just a question on the artistic director listserv with that question. And I think it was framed, if I've got 30 to 40 singers, a 4-minute song.
I'm happy to take that because I spent a lot of time on this. So it depends on what you want. There are services out there. There's one in particular that a guy named Curtis Olson put up where you can literally send your audio and video, and within like 30 minutes, he will zap together, automated, a Brady Bunch only grid for free of your chorus. It will have a little bit of sound cleanup and it'll have a little bit of reverb, and the faces will pretty much be framed, and that's it. So if that's all you want, free. Mm-hmm. But if you want it to be produced and you want the audio to be edited and you want noisy breaths taken out and you want something other than Brady Bunch squares, you're probably going to spend $1,500 for a song. If you've got a smaller ensemble, if you want a simpler version, you may be able to do it for $600. If you're doing just 8 people standing and singing and you just want them with a little bit of editing, you can probably find somebody for $300. If you want something that is totally storylined and has drone footage and has choreography outside on the Capitol steps, like the price is going to keep going up, right?
Yes.
So it's very time-consuming work.
Yeah.
But there's also this huge variation. You can do free zip your songs together using the Curtis Olson thing or an app that's $1 per person, and put that with a slideshow. Mm-hmm. Still can be really cool. Still can connect with the audience.
And even if you say, you don't feel it in-house, maybe you're thinking of your staff, and don't forget about your members, because it's to do the simple Brady Bunch, particularly for the small group, you probably have someone within your membership or someone in their circles that could help you with that. You'd be surprised. Kind of, we have some of our members who've stepped up to do some editing. I was like, really? I didn't know you. Oh, great. And we also have someone who wrote to me today saying they want to learn how to do the audio, and could they shadow me, when I'm doing a screen share with the company that we use for the editing. So yeah,
that's really cool. I want to say, you need, if you're going to go that route, you need to either have a plan for quality control or be willing to give it up.
Oh, definitely. Oh, definitely.
Yes, I want a certain sound for my group. I want it to be presented a certain way. So I personally, for me, have been very tight on that. But
definitely.
A lot of people would just be thrilled to get anything and see anything and just like, oh my gosh, we decided to come together and put together this song with all of our members, half of whom are super technophobes, right? There are some apps I have. We're kind of reorganizing the resource center, but I have a list of apps and websites that help you put together virtual choirs. I have another document that talks about best practices. I have sample instructions. I'm happy to share that with any of you. And on one of those apps is a list of people you can hire. So this is something I've done. It's something I'm for hire, but literally at this point, I probably don't have any availability till June. So I've been referring people to those. Choir Creator is one of those apps. I've not used it. I have it. And it's on the apps I've reviewed. It just says like, this app does this. And some of them just like have a conductor and it allows you to record and upload. Some of them have a place where you can link to a video and sing along. So that site that Jane linked in the comments is going to have lots of those lists.
And thank you for putting that together for us, Kathleen. I know it takes a lot of work, and it's such a valuable resource. So yeah, folks, don't forget about the GALA website. Has so much information there for us.
So that link is in the chat. And if you haven't discovered the GALA Resource Center, there's a whole section on COVID resources. So make sure you check that out. There's also, I noticed a few people here that I think are not on the artistic director discussion list. So if you are an artistic director and you want to be on that list, check with Kathleen. Kathleen, why don't you put your address in the chat one more time?
Sure.
Yeah, it really is a really wonderful treasure trove.
Hope I spelled that right.
I'm going to put my email in as well, so feel free to. I'm more than happy to. I won't always have the answers, but if you ever want to shoot me a note or even meet here, I'm happy to walk you through in more detail.
Well, I think those templates that you both shared, it would be great if we could put those up on that same website so that people can go and download them, use them.
Yeah, ours are in the chat, so absolutely.
Great.
Perfect.
All right, what questions? What more questions do y'all have? This has been really interesting and great energy, you two.
No,
everybody knows everything there is to know. Looks like we're good.
Well, while the questions are coming in, maybe I'll just say that I was planning to do an outdoor concert in June, and 2 weeks ago that got crushed. So we're back to a virtual season. We're going to film outdoors a little bit too. But when I called the guest artists that were going to be a part of it, they were like, "Oh yeah, we can do this in film." Like they were totally upbeat about it, and it was nice that they were excited. It's going to take me longer to get excited, but yeah.
Right.
Oh, I feel your pain. But it's the same thing. I found that our singers, I'm sure you see this too, folks have really been showing up. Like, yeah, because let's make this happen. It's nice to have for them anyway, to have a project. For us, it's what we do all the time. But for our singers, when you're stuck here with work and all that, to actually have something a little different, I think has been really valuable. And just to remain connected to the community is also invaluable.
There's a question I don't know the answer to about good digital score programs for PC users. Is that in your?
Do you mean like Finale, like a note?
Yeah, like, do you want to be able to mark up a score that exists or write a score?
Yeah, to use on a tablet and one that you can easily page through without having to scroll and use a pen to mark it up, that kind of stuff. But for a PC tablet,
there's one called Fourscore, and I basically, we have a handout in my course. I can go look for it, but basically I require any singer that's using a tablet to use that kind of software because I want them to be taking notes.
Not just looking
most
at
of our
it.
singers that use their tablet have Foursquare.
Yeah, Foursquare is definitely the most common that I've seen as well.
Thanks, y'all.
There's a question about sync rights.
Oh, good.
With 1 minute to go.
So do we know what will happen with our recorded concerts and songs when sync rights holders stop being generous because the pandemic is over? It depends on what your original terms were, and it depends on if they change their mind. So if they've given you permission to post it for 3 years, then you have permission to post it for 3 years. If it is currently allowable on YouTube, then it's going to be allowable on YouTube until the copyright holder decides that they've changed their mind. So I know that that's kind of a non-answer, but if you have permission to post it in perpetuity, then you have permission to post it in perpetuity. If they've just given you temporary permission or permission to post for a particular event, then you can't really expect anything beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
When we did the scrolling app or when we did scrolling to sing along with, the person who did it just used like Sibelius playback and captured the line moving. And I don't, what do you use when you put your music up for them to look at?
We farm it out. We use the company Artstoriet for our for the guide tracks, and they do it for us on that.
I have no idea what they use. Do you have any idea what they use?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I have no idea what they use.
I just used Finale and scroll and did literally a Zoom screenshot of the Finale score and the bouncing ball, and then embedded. Actually, I can even show you.
Smart.
In 2 seconds. I mean, it's a quick and dirty, but
Lights flash, you hear that thunder roll when those lights flash.
so that is the soprano version, and then there's of course one for each voice part. But that was so easy. To just stick in a scrolling Finale file.
That's a great way to do it. Yeah, lots of weird logistics to work out, but looks like we're working it out.
We say by the time the season's over, we'll have this all figured out,
and then time to go back to in-person.
Yeah.
Actually, I think I may do rehearsal tracks a similar way that I'm doing guide tracks, though, in the future. Like, it's just kind of easy.
I'm giving it back to somebody else.
Well, no, I mean to include the score scrolling along with it. I kind of like that.
Right.
Yeah, no, singers are asking that. I already got that request, so even.
Oh, yeah, you already said no to that. I remember. Okay. Again, thank you to Thea and Kathleen. This was really, really helpful and interesting. And again, there are so many resources out there. We'll keep dumping them onto the member website. So thanks for joining us tonight. And
thank you, Jane, for the opportunity. It's great to talk
give a round of applause to our presenters.
Thanks, friends.
You can unmute and say thank you if you want to.
Thank you. That was great.
Thank you. That was great.
That's very helpful.
Very
Thank you so much.
informative.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Best of luck with the rest of your season. See you soon.